Hi everyone, my name's Justin Odisho, and in this Adobe Premiere Pro CC tutorial, I'm going to show you 5 different strobe and flicker effects you can create with the built-in strobe light effect. If you've been enjoying these effects and tutorials, definitely leave a like below and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any future uploads. So I've got a couple clips laid out on the timeline, and in order to get to this effect, you want to open up the effects panel, and in the video effects folder, you should find it in the stylized folder. So it's right here, it's called strobe light. Now you can click and drag this directly onto clips, or you can go on your project media bin, go to File, New, Adjustment Layer, and you can apply the effects onto adjustment layers if you want them to go through several cuts. But in this case, I'll keep it directly on the clip, and you see in the effects control panel the strobe light, and there's a few different parameters that you can adjust. So you have the masking options like in any effect really, and the strobe color and all these different duration periods. So there's 2 main ways that this effect works. If I press play here, by default, you'll see it does a half a second white and half a second off strobe. But you can make it operate either on color or transparency. So if you do transparency, that'll give it a half a second transparent, half a second off, which looks black because there's nothing underneath this. But if I were to drag another clip underneath, then you'd see that it's transparent. The clips are flashing in order of the track layers. So the 5 effects that I'm going to show you are pretty simple. One is the basic black strobe. So you can see you can either make it transparent and not put anything underneath, or you could leave it on operate on color and just choose black as the color. And in order to get a faster strobe and flicker, you just adjust the strobe duration to be shorter. So you could do something like 0.1 on for every 0.2 off, then it'll flicker 5 times faster than that default, and pretty much just adjust it by half if you want it to be faster or slower depending on your preference. So that's the black strobe, and of course if we made that transparent, make layer transparent instead of using a color with that same flickering speed, if we were to overlap 2 clips, so the strobed one on top of another, then you have the flickering between 2 clips, so those are 2 ways. But you've probably seen me mention those in previous videos, so let's get into the third effect, which is a little bit more creative. So let's say we have this clip here. What we can do is actually, I'll hold Alt and Option to just click and create a duplication right above this track. You could also right click, copy and paste it onto track 2. So now we have one clip on top of the other, an exact same copy. So now what you can do is create changes or differences between these 2 clips. So for example, I could set this clip to a blending mode like screen or color dodge, and maybe increase the scale so we have a little bit of offset, or add some type of blurs or other effects, whatever you want, and then add a strobe light onto the copy so that you only see the copy on a flickering time pattern. So in this case, you'd make sure you set the strobe to make layer transparent because we're trying to see what's underneath, and then you have a cool alternating flicker of the original clip on top of itself. And you can make it faster or slower for some interesting effects. Now the 4th way you can use this strobe light effect is to create cool colorful strobes instead of these typical flickers. So let's add a strobe light onto this clip, and let's play around with some keyframing options to even get a little bit more advanced. So I'll have the strobe operate on a color, but I'm going to make that color keyframe from one to the next. So I can start out with red, and make sure you click the stopwatch icon to set the strobe color, and then I can go a little bit further down the clip and switch colors to perhaps blue, go a little bit further down the clip and maybe switch to green. And now when I press play, you'll see that the strobe is actually transitioning gradually between those colors. And so we can use the strobe operator to adjust how this color blends in with the original clip. The operator is kind of like blending modes. So you have the add, subtract, multiply, your usual blending modes that you might be familiar with in all of your Adobe programs. So if we set it to something like difference, then we see that the color maps and color codes are kind of multiplying or dividing differently depending on the different blending modes we choose. And that can create some really interesting effects as you're seeing here. Or if you wanted to just keep the color on the whole time rotating without any strobes, just make the strobe duration 0 and the strobe period 1 second. And that'll just keep it on, which is kind of a roundabout way of doing this because you could also create gradients and ramps in Premiere, but it's another cool thing that you can do with the strobe tool. Now the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is stack these effects on top of each other. So let's say you wanted to do a colorful strobe like this and also make it flicker on and off black like you saw I did with the text in the intro. what you do is just stack another strobe light effect. So you can see this is the first strobe light we have, and then we can stack as many as we want, doing whatever type of different parameters and settings we want, and they'll all combine onto each other. So for this second one that's happening after the first one, they kind of happen in order. You'd set the strobe to make layer transparent. You'd make it go as fast or slow as you want. And now not only do you have the original clip rotating in color, you also have the second one flickering it or doing whatever you want. And you can see how you can start to stack and go backwards on these effects and get kind of an infinite number of combinations, really. This is the same thing I did with the title. I just went to title, new title, typed out whatever I wanted, and dragged my title over the intro, and then applied two strobes, one to change the color and one to flicker it. So I'll copy these strobes by Command-C'ing all the effects from the clip here. I'll just paste them onto the text, and we'll get the same exact things happening on the text as on the clip. So it's starting to look a little crazy here, but you guys get the idea. You can create presets for a certain type of strobes you want just by right-clicking, saving as preset, and then you can always find those in the presets folder and just click and drag them on. But as you can see, it's a really powerful kind of mathematical tool for you to create colorful, flickery effects for whatever projects you're working on. So if you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure you leave a like on it below. Let me know your thought in the comments. How would you use it? And make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for future videos on my channel. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Odisho. If you guys want to send me a message, tune into the live streams. Stay tuned with all the behind the scenes. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.